The story kicked off at High School 101, where Saito Hojo was strolling to his classroom like he owned the place. Just as he reached the door, Akane, a fellow student he couldn't stand, blocked his path. With all the subtlety of a villain in a bad teen drama, she warned him, "Keep our relationship a secret, or I'll erase you from existence." Saito stood there, utterly baffled, trying to decide if he had accidentally walked into a fantasy novel. He pondered this bizarre new bond with Akane, whom he despised more than early morning algebra classes. Flashback to a few days earlier. Akane was fuming at Saito for turning the class journal into his personal joke book. She was especially peeved that he ignored the timetable and shirked simple tasks like cleaning the blackboard. Saito, ever the underachiever, shrugged off her complaints, claiming the day was as uneventful as a lukewarm cup of tea. When Akane pointed out his strange note about evil spirits in the absence column, Saito dismissed it, saying no one would care. Not surprisingly, Akane wasn't having any of it. Saito sarcastically suggested she dive into some actual books instead, to which Akane retorted that she was trying to improve his attitude. The tension was thicker than a cafeteria milkshake, until Himari stepped in, begging Akane to chill before she turned Saito into her personal punching bag. Still irate, Akane accused Saito of being careless and neglecting his duties, which Saito countered with typical teenage indifference. Himari, sensing a chance to play peacemaker, asked Akane why she always targeted Saito. Akane admitted that his mere presence annoyed her, without offering any logical explanation. Saito couldn't help but sarcastically wonder if he was mentally unbearable, and Akane didn't disagree, probably because she had nothing better to say. Just then, Shizuya intervened, teasing Saito and calling him a poor thing, while giving him a patronizing pat on the head. Grateful for the small comfort, Saito thanked her. Meanwhile, Himari, noticing Akane's relentless teasing, joked, "Are you sure you're not secretly into him?" Akane immediately snapped back, "Not a chance. Even if you were the only guy left, I wouldn't feel that way." Saito smirked and retorted, "Same here. Even if everything changed, I'd never fall for you." Their sharp banter added a humorous edge to their otherwise strained relationship. After school, as Saito was walking home, his phone rang. It was his grandfather, wanting to catch up over tea. Saito, not missing a beat, declined, joking he preferred his books over hanging out with old geezers. But Grandpa wasn't having it. He insisted that he was grooming Saito to take over the family business, threatening that neglecting him now would lead to regret later. Saito fired back with a sarcastic remark, only for his grandfather to act hurt, accusing him of being cold-hearted. Saito quipped that he thought his grandfather was supposed to be tougher. With a sly grin, the grandfather reminded him that refusing was not an option, cleverly leveraging Saito's intelligence against him. Saito, keeping up the jest, asked what would happen if he decided to run away. Grandpa warned him to obey for his own good, prompting Saito to liken him to a blackmailing villain. The call ended with Grandpa firmly telling Saito to get in the car, leaving Saito to wonder where he was being dragged off to. Sitting in the back seat, Saito watched the world go by, pondering his grandfather Tenryu Hojo's legacy. Tenryu had heroically saved the family business from sinking, transforming Hojo Group into a global tech powerhouse despite public backlash. Even in his golden years, Tenryu was still the commanding force behind the company. The driver, breaking the silence, remarked that unlike Saito's father, the president seemed to have a soft spot for him, hinting at complicated family dynamics. When they arrived at their destination, Saito was surprised to see Akane there as well. She explained that her grandmother had called her, but she was annoyed that Saito had to ruin her peaceful lunch plans. Saito, uninterested, told her to stop talking while he read, which only infuriated Akane more. Demanding an apology, Akane vowed to keep bothering him until he complied. Saito sarcastically asked if she would follow him around, and Akane confidently affirmed. Just then, both their grandmothers pulled up in a flashy Ferrari, catching everyone off guard. Saito's grandfather greeted them with casual charm, while Akane's grandmother quipped about how impatient young people have become. Confused, Saito and Akane watched as their grandfathers instructed them to come along. Realizing that the grandparents were speaking about both of them, the two students wondered what was unfolding. They found themselves seated for a lavish meal, where Saito's grandfather proposed a toast, calling the day eventful. Saito, puzzled by the choice of words, remained silent, while Akane, still annoyed, asked for more juice. Saito pointed out her overindulgence, and Akane snarkily claimed she lost her appetite after seeing him. He joked that maybe she was emitting some mysterious substance that made others lose their appetite. She shot back, calling it a waste of good food, and demanded that Saito delete his presence. He replied with a quip about her disappearing into a quantum unit instead. Their grandparents chuckled at the banter, reminiscing about their younger days, while Saito and Akane denied any resemblance. Curious about the purpose of the meeting, Saito finally asked. Suddenly, his grandfather announced that they wanted Saito and Akane to get married, leaving both students speechless. Saito wondered if it was some sort of elaborate joke, but his grandfather urged him not to overthink it. Akane, utterly confused, protested, questioning why they were being asked to marry while still in school. The grandmother suggested that marriage was possible at 18, and the grandfather reiterated his insistence. The grandparents then shared their own past romances, revealing that they had feelings for each other in their youth but never ended up together. Saito's grandfather had married someone else, lived happily, and had lost his wife 10 years ago. Luckily, his grandfather died 2 years later, in 2001. She revealed that her own husband had passed away, and Tenru, Saito's grandfather, had been her rock ever since. Poor Akane, caught off guard by the sudden dive into personal drama, tried desperately to steer the conversation away from soggy sentiments. But the grandparents were on a mission, determined to ensure their grandchildren achieved the dreams they themselves never could. Shio turned to Akane with a hopeful glint in her eye, asking if she would marry Saito just to keep her grandmother happy. Akane shot back a firm refusal, declaring that marriage should be about love and personal choice, not some outdated obligation. Saito, never one to miss a chance for sarcasm, teased Akane about her idealism, but Akane stood her ground, unwavering in her beliefs. She made it clear she had zero interest in this arranged setup, emphasizing that forcing a marriage wasn't something their country condoned. Tenru, anticipating their rejection like a scriptwriter foresees a plot twist, remarked that their refusal was no surprise and that they reminded him of their younger selves. Just when the tension threatened to thicken into an unbearable fog, a stray dog wandered into the conversation. Grandpa, always ready with a quip, joked that if Saito didn't agree to the marriage, the dog would inherit the Hojo group. Saito, eyebrows raised, asked about the canine heir apparent. Grandpa casually explained he'd picked up the dog from the street, adding that while the dog might not be cut out to run a global tech empire, it could at least handle some paperwork by stamping documents with its paw. Saito, unimpressed, quipped that the dog wasn't the real problem here. Grandpa nodded sagely, acknowledging that maybe the Hojo group's legacy would end with his generation. He then mused that a touch of madness was essential to running a company, leaving everyone to ponder the wisdom in that statement. After all, he was the last person to judge whether or not something was wise to begin with. Meanwhile, Akane's grandmother whispered something into her ear, leaving Akane visibly shaken. Grandpa turned to both grandchildren, advising them to take time to reflect and not act on impulse. He generously granted them 3 days to decide, urging them to consider what was truly in their best interests. After the grandparents left, Akane confronted Saito, asking if he was seriously considering the marriage proposal. She was fishing for his reaction, hoping to catch him off guard. Saito deflected the question, turning it back on her and asking for her thoughts. Frustrated, Akane tried to brush him off, admitting she never imagined this scenario unfolding. Curiosity piqued, Saito pressed further, wanting to know what Akane's grandmother had whispered. But Akane was having none of it, insisting it wasn't relevant. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Saito emphasized the importance of understanding both sides. Akane, however, stubbornly shut him down, telling him not to try and figure her out. Realizing his efforts were futile, Saito took a step back, letting Akane take the lead. She declared that she would handle things her own way because it was her future at stake. Later that day, Akane called her friend Himari, posing a hypothetical dilemma. If she were forced to marry someone she didn't like due to family obligations, what would she do? Himari, ever the comedian, joked that the situation felt old-fashioned, but said she would simply reject the idea. Akane pressed her, curious why, only to discover that Himari had a crush on someone else and only wanted to marry him. Surprised, Akane demanded to know who, but Himari coyly refused, instead teasing her about having a crush. Akane, not in the mood for games, shared that she had someone in mind, but added with a dark, frustrated tone that she wished he were gone and that her problems would vanish if he just disappeared. Himari, trying to lighten the mood, joked that Akane could marry the person to cut down on living expenses. Akane dismissed the idea, arguing that financial savings weren't a good reason to tie the knot. She then mused about the expectation that marriage leads to children, to which Himari quipped that Akane could have a large family. Akane laughed it off, and the two friends continued their playful banter, ending in laughter over their hypothetical scenarios. Meanwhile, Saito sat deep in thought, troubled by the idea of being forced into a marriage with Akane, someone he already found stressful both at school and at home. He pondered his grandfather's unreasonable demands. To inherit the family business, his life would be entirely controlled. If he refused, the company would go to a random outsider. Zishi, sensing his inner conflict, asked him what he truly desired: freedom to live his life or the company's legacy. Saito sighed, expressing that ideally he wanted both. Zishi gently reminded him that life doesn't work that way. Everyone must follow certain rules or instincts, and the best way to thrive is to work within those rules instead of resisting them. Saito, still uncertain, wondered if that meant he had no choice but to comply and inherit the company. Zishi reassured him that no matter what path he chose, she would support him. Whether he struggled or succeeded, she promised to be by his side always. Back at school, Zishi attempted to greet Akane, but she brusquely brushed him off. A few days later, both Zishi and Akane were summoned in front of Tenryu. The grandfather asked if they had made a decision regarding the marriage. Reluctantly, the two agreed to go through with it, though Akane insisted it wasn't out of any affection. The grandparents beamed with joy, having already made arrangements. To Saito's surprise, Tenryu announced they would marry immediately and had prepared a new home for them. Saito protested, but the grandparents assured them everything was already set. Once they left, Saito locked the door of the house, prompting Akane to ask if he was trying to trap her. Saito explained that the door could be opened from the inside, but Akane remained suspicious of the entire situation. After moving into their luxurious new home, Akane was initially impressed, but couldn't hide her frustration about having to live with Saito. Saito pulled together the packages of clothes and placed them on the chairs. As they explored the house, Saito found solace in his personal study. However, when they reached the bedroom, Akane was taken aback to find only one bed, causing a bit of tension. Saito called his grandfather, who insisted that since they were married, they must share the same bed. No alternative options like the sofa were available. The conversation took an awkward turn as Akane accused Saito of having inappropriate intentions, assuming their grandfather expected them to engage in intimate relations. Saito tried to calm her down, assuring her he wasn't interested in forcing anything or taking advantage of her. Still upset, Akane stormed off to her room. Adjusting to their unexpected arranged marriage, Akane and Saito navigated the challenges of living together. Akane resisted Saito's help, accusing him of having ulterior motives, while Saito tried to keep the peace. During meals, Akane remained skeptical, especially about the oddities of their arrangement. Sharing a bed proved uncomfortable as both set boundaries, acknowledging the awkwardness of their situation. Akane explained that her marriage to Saito was merely a formality tied to her personal goals. Throughout their interactions, humor and tension danced hand in hand, marked by playful arguments and misunderstandings. Akane tells Sato not to tell anyone about their marriage. Sato agrees with her. After that, both of them finally enter the classroom. Inside the class, Himari notices Akane's expression and assumes that she is angry at Sato again. Akane looks surprised and denies it, saying that she isn't mad at him. Meanwhile, Sato goes to his seat. Just then, his sister approaches him and mentions that he smells different today. She questions him about who he was with the previous day. Hearing this, Sato starts to panic. To cover up, he makes an excuse and tells her that their father bought a new shampoo, which is probably why he smells different. However, his sister isn't convinced. She sniffs the air and insists that the scent is similar to that of a girl. Suddenly, she bites Sato's neck and reveals that she already knows about his marriage. Sato, shocked and nervous, asks her how she found out. His sister smirks and explains that after he told her about their grandfather and the company, she did some research. She discovered everything, including where his new house is. She is about to mention the girl's name, but before she can do so, Sato quickly covers her mouth and drags her away. They reach the stairs, and his sister expresses her disappointment. She tells Sato that he did something wrong by keeping this a secret from her. She then declares that she will give him a punishment. After thinking for a while, she decides that whatever she asks him to do, he must follow it. Later, Sato returns to his seat. However, Akane approaches him angrily and scolds him for leaving the gym equipment outside. She warns that someone could trip over it and get badly injured. She continues to shout at him, and this time Sato also gets frustrated. He raises his voice in response, and once again an argument breaks out between them. The other students start whispering among themselves, noting how the two of them are always fighting. Himari then intervenes and points out that Akane and Sato argue all the time. She mentions that because of their constant fights, they have become famous in the school. Many students even assume that they are either a couple or a married pair. Hearing this, Akane freezes in embarrassment. The scene then shifts to their house, where Akane calls Sato over. She asks him why he bought so much juice. Sato simply replies that it is vegetable juice and that it is very healthy. After that, Sato excitedly reveals a large quantity of noodles, leaving Akane shocked. He explains that noodles are ideal for meals since they cook quickly. Irritated, Akane questions his choice, wondering how he plans to get enough protein from such a diet. In response, Sato takes out a protein powder, mixes it with vegetable juice in a shaker, and hands it to her. Disgusted, Akane refuses to drink it. Unwilling to accept her refusal, Sato forcefully tries to make her drink it, leading to yet another argument. With an unsettling expression, he insists that since he put effort into making the juice, she has no choice but to drink it. Feeling uneasy, Akane senses danger in his behavior. The thought of running away crosses her mind, but she fears that refusing him outright might escalate the situation further. Instead, she decides to cook a proper meal. Kamahate, unimpressed by her effort, dismisses the need for a cooked meal, stating that he plans to drink the juice regardless. Determined to prove herself, Akane puts on a cute apron and starts cooking. As she prepares the meal, she imagines the moment Sato takes his first bite, convinced that he will be completely mesmerized and finally recognize her talent. Sato observes her, growing increasingly uneasy as he notices her eerie grin. Her expression unsettles him, and he feels the need to warn her to stop smiling in such a creepy way. Akane, irritated by his remark, grows frustrated at his lack of appreciation for her efforts. Meanwhile, Sato begins overthinking, wondering if she might tamper with his food. The thought of this being his last meal lingers in his mind. When the food is finally ready, it looks absolutely delicious. Akane confidently assures Sato that it tastes great and urges him to try it. However, he hesitates, feeling anxious about eating something prepared by her. Eventually, he takes a bite, and memories from his past come rushing back. Memories of losing his parents and living alone, surviving only on cup noodles. The taste triggers a sense of nostalgia, but rather than expressing his emotions, he merely comments that the food is normal, cooked at a standard temperature. Akane is taken aback by his indifferent reaction. Frustration builds up, and she abruptly grabs the plate, declaring that if he doesn't like it, he doesn't have to eat it. This sparks yet another argument between them. Sato, unwilling to let the food go to waste, insists on eating it since she gave it to him. Akane refuses to let him have it, convinced that he did not appreciate it enough. Determined, Sato quickly snatches the plate from her hands and devours the entire meal. To his surprise, the food turns out to be incredible. After finishing, he thanks her, realizing how much he truly enjoyed it. Akane, however, is furious. Unable to contain her frustration, she starts hitting him, but Sato, too overwhelmed by the taste, feels as though he has been transported to another world. Later that night, Sato falls into a deep sleep in his bed. The next morning, Akane comes to wake him up. In his sleep, Sato unconsciously dreams of lying next to his sister. Without realizing it, he reaches out, grabs Akane's hand, and pulls her into bed with him. Flustered, Akane turns bright red with embarrassment. The moment she processes what just happened, she immediately starts yelling at him, cursing him out in frustration. Sato and Akane constantly clashed over their differences. One evening, Akane pointed out the pile of unwashed dishes, reminding Sato that it had been his turn to clean them. Dismissing her frustration, Sato suggested they reuse the remaining clean dishes and wash everything once they accumulated enough. His carefree attitude only fueled Akane's irritation, leading her to bring up other grievances: his excessive use of toilet paper, finishing the bathroom supplies too quickly, and his overall lack of responsibility. Sato shrugged off her complaints, assuring her they could always buy more. The tension between them grew as Akane became increasingly frustrated with his behavior. Later, as they walked to school, Sato reflected on how different they were. That night, he immersed himself in a zombie game, but Akane's sudden reaction to the violent imagery disrupted him. She found the game unsettling and insisted he turn it off, but he remained focused on completing his level. Akane expressed her distaste for violent games, sparking yet another argument between them. In the middle of their quarrel, the doorbell rang. As Akane went to answer it, the TV plug was accidentally pulled, shutting off Sato's game. When she returned, she found him in a state of despair over his lost progress, unable to comprehend his devastation. Later that night, Sato unknowingly walked in on Akane while she was bathing. Realizing her lack of reaction, he panicked, thinking she had lost consciousness in the water. His concern led him to approach her, only for Akane to suddenly wake up and misinterpret his intentions. Horrified, she lashed out, throwing objects at him and demanding he leave her house. Sato, unable to explain himself, fled the scene. As she later processed the incident, Akane became overwhelmed with emotions, torn between embarrassment and anger. At school, her friend Himari noticed her distress. Akane hesitated to confide in her, but their conversation eventually led to a realization. Her constant fighting with Sato was exhausting. Himari suggested she approach him differently, focusing on mutual respect rather than resentment. Meanwhile, Sato confided in his sister Sasai about the struggles of living with Akane. He admitted that staying at home had become unbearable, but leaving wasn't an option due to his grandfather's expectations. Sasai reminded him that being the future head of a company required patience and understanding. If he couldn't simply leave, he needed to find a way to coexist with Akane. Their conversation gave Sato a new perspective, prompting him to rethink his approach. That evening, as Sato returned home, he was met with Akane standing at the door, her expression unreadable. Expecting another argument, he prepared himself for the worst. Instead, she simply asked to talk. Their discussion led to a mutual agreement. They needed to establish boundaries and rules to make cohabitation bearable. Though the conversation remained tense, it was the first time they openly addressed their frustrations without resorting to shouting. Despite their lingering differences, they both realized that understanding each other was the key to making their shared living situation work. As Sato entered the room, Akane quickly lay down on the bed, visibly nervous. Her anxious thoughts led her to believe that Sato might touch her, but he found her worries ridiculous. He thought to himself how foolish she was. Accidental touches were bound to happen when two people shared the same bed. However, Akane completely misunderstood his words and appeared even more terrified. Later, Sato shared with Sisai that he and Akane had talked things through and everything was finally fine between them. Sisai, on the other hand, kept making strange and unrelated comments that had nothing to do with reality. Wanting to make amends, Sato bought Akane her favorite cake. She was surprised and asked how he knew. He reminded her that she had mentioned it in class before. Akane jokingly called him a creep, but deep down, she was happy that he had remembered. She even thanked him for the gesture. In return, Akane cooked a delicious dinner for Sato, leaving him surprised. She eagerly asked him to taste the food and share his thoughts. To her delight, Sato found the meal incredibly tasty, and hearing his compliment made Akane feel even better. After dinner, Sato started washing the dishes, and Akane joined him to help. At first, he told her he didn't need any assistance, but she insisted, calling him rude for refusing. Eventually, Sato thanked her and the two washed the dishes together. It was evident that their relationship had significantly improved. And with that, the episode came to an end.